What's going on, champs and champettes? It's FireMonkey here, and welcome back to another YouTube video. So in today's YouTube video, we're going to be talking about Kevin the Purple Cube, our favorite cube that's rolled around the map for centuries now, coming back to the island in its alive form sometime during Chapter 2. That's right, I said alive form. We're not going to have another Kevin, Industries building over at Steamy. We're not just going to have another memorial. No, the cube itself is reviving back from the dead and coming to the Fortnite island. This is backed up by not only insider leaks, but also the actual Rift Tour live event that just concluded today. Before we begin, however, I do want to recap all the information for those who may not have even played in Chapter 1, so that they can be kept in the loop with why Kevin's important to the storyline and all that glorious stuff. So here we are in Chapter 1, Season 5 of Fortnite, where in the previous season, the Visitor had just launched a rocket into the sky, creating a massive rift up there, or at the time we just kind of called it a crack because we didn't know it would be called a rift at all, and everyone was theorizing what is actually going on. Some people thought this was all a simulation, and this is our point of cracking out of the simulation and going into the Save the World universe. However, we did not expect what actually ended up happening that season. So this rift in the sky pretty much just sat there for a little bit of time, not doing anything, until out of nowhere it started striking a hill near Paradise Palms that was surrounded by cactuses with lightning. Now it was actually striking the cactuses with lightning, and it was kind of made to be a timer. So you would notice that the cactus gets destroyed, it's like, alright, now we gotta wait for the next one, and something big should happen once all the cactuses are gone. Well, that big thing did happen on August 24th, 2018 in the same location where lightning had struck for the final time, and it lasted like a full 5 minutes. Like, no joke, this was a very long lightning strike, and what had actually risen from the ground was Kevin the Cube himself, or at this time just kind of called Purple Cube. And originally, he was a stationary object. He wouldn't move around, he would just sit there, and you could use him as a bouncy castle, because he would get bounced upwards if you did jump on him, and you wouldn't take fall damage. Now, as time actually progressed, the cube started to move, and it wasn't just any, hey, I'm gonna grow legs and walk on out of here, I'd see you later. No, the cube would just rotate on one of its faces, and it would do this every hour and 43 minutes. Now, we noticed it started rotating, and actually back in 2018 when all this was going on, me and a buddy of mine named Silox, who is also known nowadays as Prism, made the map you can see on screen right now, where we tracked the cube every hour and 43 minutes. We even had a website and everything, all the way up until its final location on the 26th day of it moving around. Yes, we were that dedicated to tracking a cube roll. Now, pretty much everything seemed pretty weird, because you're just sitting there, you see this cube rolling around. What are you supposed to do with that? Well, during its journey around the map, the cube printed 7 runes with anti-gravity domes surrounding them. And it wasn't just instant anti-gravity where you would just jump in and then you just float upwards until you get out of the dome and then down to the ground. No, instead what actually happened here was you had lower gravity than normal, and the cube just kind of printed one of these runes on it. Like, no one really knew what the rune was for. We thought, oh, maybe there's a bigger event going on soon, but we couldn't very easily verify that. Now, after finishing this process, the cube destroyed one of the buildings in Tilted Towers, and ironically, that building was the one that always got destroyed like every single season and rebuilt the season after it. It was just a running gimmick with that building, which later became the No Sweat building. And while it may seem kind of funny, Tilted Towers getting its one building that always gets destroyed again right before it reopens, it actually was not the intended target of Kevin the Cube himself, as he continued rotating and rotating every hour and 43 minutes until it reached the edge of Loot Lake on September 19th, 2018, where it flipped its final time and dissolved entirely into the water, turning Loot Lake into a purple-pink gelatin state with properties akin to the cube itself. Basically meaning that if you jumped onto the lake, you would be bouncing around like no tomorrow. And sadly, it didn't infect the whole entire water supply on the Fortnite island with this purple goo. It was only restricted to the Loot Lake area. However, with the beginning of Chapter 1, Season 6 of Fortnite, it was revealed that the cube was still intact as it rose from the ground, taking that main building in Loot Lake with it, creating the floating island. This created also a giant vortex in the middle of the map that, despite you may wanting to dive all all the way down there, you wouldn't be able to, as it would just shoot you upwards and allow you to redeploy your glider whenever you want to. Now, overall, you just had a floating island there and not much really happened until on October 24th, 2018, aka the very first day of Fortnitemares 2018, the cube exploded the floating island into multiple pieces. The cube was still intact following the explosion, however, the actual island itself turned into this weird mixture where, let's say you're over here and looting, you could easily fly over to the other side if you saw someone else trying to loot up in the lesser, like, chested up area and try eliminating them for some easy kills. However, you know, you could also just yeet on out of there, fly away, and not have to worry about getting eliminated that easily. It was a very hot POI due to all of the changes that happened to it, and, you know, it was just very cool to see some actual map changes coming for a Halloween event. Now, the cube began to crack, and on November 3rd, it began to drip its liquid into the vortex until the final drip happened on November 4th, 2018. The cube started to spin rapidly, which led to a white flash and the cube splitting entirely apart. After the flash, players were teleported to a place called the In-Between, and shortly after, a rift formed and took shape of a butterfly, which then multiplied and came to every player still alive during this live event. A cutscene showed up where the player put out their finger, the butterfly would land on the finger, and then get teleported back to the map through a rift. This created an entirely new POI known as Leaky Lake, and cube monsters, which were a Halloween exclusive thing for Fortnitemares 2018, were completely gone. Now, it was just very interesting to see, oh hey, the cube exploded, everything's gone. You know, what's going to happen now? We just have Leaky Lake, the cube's dead. Really, where do we go from here? And that's pretty much what happened to the cube. In Chapter 2 Season 1, a new location named Steamy Stacks appeared. As you guys know, it's still in the game right now, it barely gets changed, and the company that owns Steamy Stacks is called Kevolution Energy. Not only this, but there's a little bit of a memorial there being like, hey, rest in peace to the cube, but nothing really ever came from it until Chapter 2 Season 6, where the Spire artifact came into play as a quest exclusive item. Now, the Spire artifact was a small piece of the Spire's core and emitted cube runes on top of it. It corrupted Raz, turning his body into a more powerful boss known as Glyph Master Raz, capable of controlling 0-point energy crystals and attracting aliens. Raz's real soul and mind remains at Colossal Crops. However, this new Glyph Raz kind of controlled and patrolled the main Spire building in the middle of the map until Chapter 2 Season 7, where, well, the aliens invaded the island and Glyph Master Raz was just like, I'm a peace out. And that's where we really leave off. So now that you guys are caught up to date with everything regarding Fortnite, let's talk about the most important part of everything, which is what happened during the Rift Tour live event. So during the live event, one of the first sequences you actually go through is something called the memory sequence, where you can see previous live events in a little Photoshop format and, you know, just these little orbs around the map. Now, something very interesting here was when they showed Kevin the Cube. The reason why this is interesting is because it may look like just, you know, an innocent little cube sitting here from Chapter 1. However, if you analyze this photo and actually extract the raw data, you may notice that's not the Chapter 1 map. That's right, Kevin the Cube, the image they showed during the Rift Tour, is actually on the Chapter 2 map, which we haven't seen at all during this entire season, chapter, anything. The Rift Tour basically gave us an exclusive first look at Kevin the Cube on the new map. And now, I actually went into replay mode, and as you can see on screen right now, this is the location that Kevin the Cube was in that little image thing, and then there's also going to be an image showing the map on screen as well, so you can see where you could go to see this yourself. So whatever is going on with Kevin, it appears to be near Steamy. Maybe a secret experiment's going on with the Chaos Agent to bring the cube back from the dead, since that was his hideout spot. Or maybe something more sinister is going on the island, considering Raz corrupted himself with a literal shard of the 0 point, which is Kevin the Cube, and the fact that in Chapter 2 Season 7, aliens themselves invaded the island, taking the 0 point with it, which is the same material, the same substances as Kevin the Cube himself is. Now, other than the backstory of Kevin the Cube himself and the actual Rift Tour live event, what else do we know that could lead towards Kevin the Cube returning sometime in the near future during Chapter 2, and potentially towards the end of the current season we're in, Chapter 2 Season 7? Well, as you guys know, there was the previous, insider leak that I had touched on before, and one of the things it mentioned was that the cube would return. And now it wasn't just going to be like, hey, what's up guys, I'm Kevin, I decided to come back to play. No, it stated this exact quote in the leak. The cube will return at the end of Season 7, controlled by an unknown queen character that will play a part in the Chapter 3 storyline. So it appears that, yeah, Kevin the Cube is planning to return towards the end of the season and will actually be back on the island, so who knows, maybe we'll have to track it for another 26 days. We really don't know what's going to happen, but I do want to know in the comments down below, are you guys excited to see our best boy Kevin the Purple Cube returning to the Fortnite island, and do you plan to turn him into a bouncy castle once again like I plan to? With that said, however, let me know what you thought about today's video in the comments down below. I'll be responding to some of you guys as usual, and with that said, I am out. Peace.